The Maynard Carbine is a capping breech loader, and this is that era when they were starting to do cartridges, but they still wanted percussion caps, or in Dr. Maynard's case, the Maynard tape primer.
Dr. Edward Maynard was an interesting chap. He was born in 1813 in Maryland, attended West Point for a short period of time, but he decided it wasn't really for him. He didn't do all that well. So he attended dental college and became one of the preeminent dentists of the 19th century in America. He was interested in lots of different things, and he took out a number of different firearms patents. But the two that he's most known for, number one is the Maynard tape priming system. Theoretically, when you cock the gun, it would advance the primer right over the nipple, and you could fire the gun, and you wouldn't have to physically put a percussion cap on it. However, the tape primer aside, Dr. Maynard also devised a very, very clever little single-shot carbine. It had an under lever. You lowered the lever, the barrel dropped down, and you loaded it with a metallic cartridge.
It had a self-contained metallic cartridge to a point. It had just a small hole drilled in the back where the spark from the percussion cap would travel to ignite it. So it didn't really have its own primer. It didn't possess the 3 Ps, the primer, the propellant, and the projectile all in one. But it was pretty neat. 35 and 50 caliber models were made. Had a pretty interesting stock, one of the more curious stocks of any rifle used during that period. Most stocks of the period are a little bit rounded. You can rest your cheek on them to shoot. His looks like an oar, a paddle would be more fitting for its use. It's just a thin plank.
The very first ones of these had the Maynard tape roll on it. And they made a number of these carbines right as the war clouds of the Civil War were beginning to form. And in some of the southern states, Florida, Mississippi, Georgia, bought hundreds of these Maynard carbines with the Maynard tape, had a little patch box on the butt, and issued them out.
The Maynard Carbine was a wonderfully simple design. It was wonderfully robust. It worked well, and there were no complaints from anyone regarding its use. It's just that there were a number of designs in contention in the 1850s, and Maynard was in tough competition to gain contracts. And what ultimately happened as he developed his first model Maynard Carbine with his Maynard tape priming system, 1858, 1859, the US government has already contracted with a number of different cavalry carbines. So he doesn't have a lot of wiggle room there to offer the government anything. What he can do, however, is offer the Maynard to some of the state governments in the South. And they're in the hands of the Confederate government when war breaks out in 1861. Well, Maynard, he's making these guns at factories in the North, so when the Confederacy breaks away, he can't sell guns to the Confederacy anymore. But all of a sudden, the Union now is in need of carbines. They want to buy every carbine that they can get their hands on. So Maynard sells a bunch more of these first model Maynard carbines to the Union, and these are equipped with this tape priming system. But unfortunately, there's a problem that befalls his grand plans. The Massachusetts Arms Company that Maynard contracts his rifle out to has a fire in 1861. And as a result, they can't make any guns. And they're down until the later part of 1863. Well, the Civil War is still raging, and the government still wants guns. And so when the factory's up and running in 1863, the government contracts for Maynard's second model of carbine. Now this time, they've said, you know what, we don't want the tape primer mechanism, that we're done with that. But if you can re-equip these and re-outfit them so that it'll use standard musket caps, will use them, and that becomes the second model.
After the Civil War, Maynard determined that this could also be made into a sporting gun. As a matter of fact, he made some sporting rifles prior to the Civil War as well. But so a number of different types of sporting guns in different calibers were produced from that period up to about 1890. The system was easily adaptable to metallic cartridge, and so there were Maynard sporting guns chambered in everything from .22 rimfire all the way up to .50-70. There were a lot of .45-70s and lots of other calibers in between. A very, very reliable gun. Some of them, they're really nice. They're in beautiful cases, and they will have spare barrels, because it's really easy. All you have to do to change caliber is just swap the barrel out. So you'll see lovely, lovely cased examples with numerous accessories with them. All in all, a very versatile gun, and it outlived a lot of its contemporaries.